So it has a brew. I've actually not got Cornish breakfast tea today. I'm just getting Red Label standard Sainsbury's own brand stuff because I couldn't be bothered to get the Mr. T out and fill it all up and wait 5 minutes more than just using a standard tea bag, which is kind of a bit bad for me, really. So I've got loads of stuff to get through. My list of stuff is there. It's monumental. There's so much stuff to do because I missed Brew Time last week because I was busy. I'm also slightly ill at the moment as well. I've got some like man flu thing that isn't really man flu. It's like all the symptoms of man flu apart from the blocked nose. Although it's sore throat and a headache and yeah. But it's going to be very busy in the next coming weeks. This might be the last Brew Time for a couple of weeks because this coming weekend I've got the IP Fire conference, and I'm going to be there with that. I'm going to create some content for those guys, and I might try and do a Brew Time maybe, or it might just be a vlog, or it might be anything. It might just be a rant because I think some of the guys are going out on Saturday night, and I'm not going to go to some show, and I really can't be bothered to go. I might do an interview with Michael Tremor again, see where the project's developed, but I don't know. It depends on what he wants to do. And then obviously the weekend after that it's going to be Eurogamer, which is going to be fantastic. So I'm going to be up there in London for 3 days. I'm going to be up there for, well, Friday evening really late, so I'm probably going to get tea and go straight to bed. Saturday, which is the 27th, and Sunday, which will be actual Eurogamer itself, or EGX as it calls itself now. And then Monday I'll be leaving. I should be leaving Monday about, I think it's about 12 midday. So I've got a bit of time in the morning to meet up with somebody if someone wants to go for breakfast or something. So I'll be in London quite a bit over the next coming week. So that should be quite good. So if you are in London at any point, I'm going to be tweeting about it most of the time. So obviously follow me on Twitter at AzzyChill, and I shall tweet you my location and what I'm going to be doing, and then you can catch up with me. That's better. But because I don't really like the design, I've decided to go for this for the duration, which is a Lego IT Crowd kind of inspired shirt from QWERTY. I'll try and find the artist, and I'll try and put it in the description below if I remember, and say if I can actually find it. The other thing I need to do at some point, probably maybe tomorrow, I need to do something, is a review of the Nokia Lumia 1520, which Nokia were kind enough to send me, and they want me to do a bit of a review of it. So I'm going to try and do that at some point. It might be in the week, it might be tomorrow, although it will go up hopefully some point this week. It depends how long they want me to keep it for. I'm only supposed to have it for 2 weeks, although I'm pretty sure it's been more than 2 weeks, and I've still got it. So hopefully they let me keep it for a month, but I don't know, because I kind of want to take it to Eurogaming and give it a proper run, because that'll be a great time to give it a proper run about. So after my ramblings on at the beginning, let's talk about some actual news. There's been loads of stuff I've missed. I will talk about the Apple iWatch, which you can see, and the iPhone 6, which you can see behind me, although I don't really want to give it much credit, and I'll go into my opinions of that later on. But IFA 2014 happened, which is a kind of consumer electronics show in Berlin, and I might actually try and go to that next year if I can, depending upon the cost of things, because I know lots of things, like the Mobile World Developers Conference, or the Mobile World Conference, whatever it's called anyway, in Barcelona, it costs quite a lot of money to go. It's like £1,000 for a ticket or something stupid. It does give you access to all the events and all the, but it's just a trade-only event, whereas something like CES is a bit different. It's a bit more press, and sort of other people and other companies kind of go to it, and they kind of don't want to put a cap on, who can go in terms of monetary value. So, but yes, IFA 2014. Now, Tech Radar's got a fantastic rundown of what the best of IFA 2014 was, and the 12 gadgets you need right now, which is a really good article. I'll put in the link, the description below. God, I can't talk today. There's an LG G Watch R, which looks really cool. It's kind of like a Moto G, but kind of Moto 360, but kind of better. It looks kind of like a G-Shock watch. It's kind of quite cool, I have to say. It looks quite funky for a smartwatch. There's a new Nokia Lumia 830. There's 4K TVs in abundance. There's a Samsung bendable UHD TV, which is quite cool, but going to be very, very expensive. Samsung Galaxy VR. That's quite interesting. Samsung Galaxy Note 4 and Note Edge, and Sony brought out the Xperia Z3, the Z3 Compact, the Z3, and the Z3 Tablet Compact. Wow, Jesus! Right, so the Samsung Galaxy VR Note 4 and Note Edge. So somebody said to me, "Oh, you should do a separate video on this and do like a big rundown of like the Note 4 and the big releases." And I basically told them to shut the F up, because the Note 4 and the Note is just. It's just unnecessary. It's a stupid device. Just get a tablet. If you're going to go that big, just get a tablet. This phone, the 1520, is huge, right? And I wouldn't go out and buy one because it's a Windows phone. Not because it's a Windows phone, because the app's crap, but I'll go and do that in a separate video. But the screen's too big. The screen's just far too big. I've got an Xperia Z, and that is perfect. It's a perfect size. It's not too big, not too small. It's fantastic. And that's the kind of size I want to be going for. So the Xperia Z is a 5-inch screen. The Lumia 1520 is a 6-inch screen, and the Note 4 is a 5.7-inch screen. So it's just too big. 5 inches is probably the biggest, I think, realistically you should be looking to go. I mean, if I take my Xperia Z out of the case, it does look big, but actually in the hand it feels good. You can kind of reach everything you need to reach, which is kind of good. I don't really see the point of having a phablet, which is a bloody awful name. I hate the bloody term, because if you're going to go that big, you may as well get a Nexus 7. You may as well. There's no point carrying that kind of device around with you, because somebody said to me, on the Note 4, the productivity is going to be great. How is it going to be great? It's still going to be the same shitty touchscreen. You can't be productive on a mobile device like that. You just can't. Yeah, you might be able to edit some spreadsheets on the go. Yeah, you might be able to input some data. Yeah, you might be able to do timesheets and stuff like that. But there's no way in hell you're going to be able to create a full Word document on a Note 4. There's no chance. Even if you had a full QWERTY keyboard, not a chance in hell. It's going to be awkward as hell. It's the same with an iPad Air, or any iPad for that matter, or any tablet for that matter, unless you've got something like a Windows tablet. It might be a little bit different, but there's no way you can be productive on any of those devices, because really they're just casual devices. They're for everyday use. They're sort of they kind of combine they kind of combine the worst of everything. They combine the worst of gaming because it hasn't really got quite enough power to run the things it needs to. The screen's not quite big enough either. And there's things like, if you're running Android, apps are a little bit iffy, depends on what ones you use. Battery life isn't going to be great, and the lack of a full QWERTY keyboard is going to be crap if you want to type with things. So it's not really great for productivity at all, and there is no reason why you'd carry around a device that big. It's just huge. I mean, I'm struggling to justify carrying this device around with me, which is a 1520. It's just far too big. 6 inches is just far too big. Make of that what you will. In terms of mobile size, shall we say. 6 inches is supposedly average, supposedly. So, anyway, it's just too big to be carrying around in your pocket. That still doesn't sound any better, does it, at all? Yeah, but 6 inches is not the most ideal size for a mobile phone screen. 5 inches, I think, is probably the biggest you should really be going. This just sounds so wrong. 5.5 maybe. I don't know. I've never tried a 5.5 inch phone, so I don't know. But the iPhone 6 is 5.5 inches as well, which I should go on to as well later on. The short and long of it was I didn't want to do a dedicated video for the Note 4 because it's a piece of shit and nobody would really use it. I don't see why anybody would pick it up and buy it. Apparently people are, but I don't really know why. You'd either get, if you were that way inclined, you get an S series phone, you get an S4, or you get, the S5, is it now S6? I don't know whichever the current version of the Galaxy lineup is. You get one of those. There's no point getting anything else, or say you would get something else because it's Samsung and Samsung makes shit devices. I don't like Samsung stuff. I think it's a piece of shit. I think it's consumerized. I think it's cheap, nasty, tacky crap. And I wouldn't spend any money on. I had an S3 for a while, and it was alright, but it was too plasticky. It was too light. It was too shit. Also, their screen was oversaturated and it looked shockingly bad. And all the reds seemed too red and all the pinks seemed too pink, and it just seemed oversaturated and just looked awful. Things like the Samsung Galaxy VR, though, look quite cool. I have to say, I think it's a good idea, and I'd like to see other mobile manufacturers making something similar. I'd like to see Sony do it, for instance, because they would do a really good job, I think. Especially if they could somehow embed, because they already do with Xperia phones, you can embed it with your PlayStation experience. If they could somehow have it so that you could link up your Xperia Z3, for instance, to your PlayStation and have some kind of Galaxy VR-esque kind of thing where you put your phone into the goggles and you could actually look at virtual reality through that. That would be fantastic because it means you'd have like an equivalent. I think they said it was something like is it 100-inch screen at like 2 meters or something. I can't remember the equivalent, how big the screen was supposed to be for the Galaxy VR, but it does look really quite cool. And I'd really like to see some other manufacturers maybe creating something similar. And I think they also released a Pebble watch as well, maybe, but I don't really care about that either. Sony did release the Xperia Z3, the Z3 Compact, and the Z3 Tablet Compact, which looks effing great. I think, personally, Google should team up with Xperia and create a Google thing, because the stuff they're creating, it's effing great. The stuff like the Z, it's still a fantastic device, fantastic spec. The Z2 was even better again. Z3 is fantastic. It's probably the market-leading Android smartphone. It's got great spec. It's got a great screen. It's got an okay camera. I don't think there's any smartphone that's really got a great camera. Oh, well, maybe the iPhone, but the megapixels aren't really there. So, you know, the Xperia lineup's fantastic. The build quality is great. It's waterproof. It's really fantastic, and actually I'd really like to see those two get together and create a Nexus device, because that would be effing amazing, especially for things like the Z3 tablet compact, because that is brilliant. That's like cramming in, basically it's like a Z3 tablet but just compacted, and it's fantastic. The original Z tablet was fantastic anyway. It was like the best Android tablet you could possibly buy in terms of spec, and it felt great and it looked great, but it was very expensive, and I was very tempted to go out and buy one and replace my iPad, but annoyingly, this really annoys me because I don't really like Apple anymore now. It's starting to annoy me. But the iPad probably is the best tablet you can possibly buy, bar none, because iOS works really great and all the other things work really great with tablets. In terms of phones, not so much. I'll go on to that later on. But yeah, so I probably won't get a Z3 compact, a tablet compact, but equally it's quite nice to have it as an alternative, something like the Nexus 7, which is a great little tablet. It fits in the palm of your hand and everything like that. Right, so I'm going to touch on the Apple stuff because people will want me to, and then I'll end on some other bits of news as well. So the iPhone 6 and iPhone 6 Plus, Jesus Christ. So I didn't actually watch the keynote because unfortunately some of us work for a living, and I couldn't actually do it, and well, I was travelling on the bus I think at the time, and then I had to catch up on Twitter, and yeah, so I've managed to do some research after the fact, and then when I travel up to Plymouth this week, because I'm going up to Plymouth twice this week, on Wednesday and Friday, and then I'm going up to London on the weekend, I'll probably look at trying to view the entire keynote, because it'll be interesting to have a look. It'll be interesting to see what was actually properly announced from that, and pull out maybe a few more details, and just kind of see what Tim Cook's like, and see how many times they slag off Android and other competitors, which they like to do. So the first thing is Apple changed the store, which is alright. It looks quite funky. It looks a lot better than it used to. I'm surprised they didn't do that before, because it's been the same as it was always been for years and years and years. So basically Apple released two phones, which is the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 6 Plus, both exactly the same spec, both got an A8 chip, both got an M8 chip, both got 8 megapixel cameras, both got supposedly better lenses and all other shit. But the iPhone 6 is a 4.7 inch screen, 1334 by 750 pixel resolution, which is 326 ppi, pixels per inch, which isn't bad. And they also released an iPhone 6 Plus, which is a 5.5 inch screen, 1920 by 1080 pixel resolution, at 401 pixels per inch. Now, I think, you know, as phones, great. You know, if you remove the Apple logo, great. They're fine phones. You know, they look fine, they look alright. But Apple has, I don't know, it just doesn't look, I mean, the design's slowly growing on me, but the design looks shit. It doesn't look Apple. It kind of looks like they're trying to copy what other people have been doing for the past couple of years. I mean, you look at like the likes of the Xperia. Xperia have gone square. They're trying to kind of copy the iPhone's kind of way of doing things, but they're doing it in their own kind of way, and it looks quite good. You look at what Samsung have been doing, especially with things like the Galaxy lineup. Most of that stuff has kind of been quite round and kind of quite nice to hold. I mean, like the S3, as much as it's a shit phone, it's really nice to hold in the hand. It's great. It's round. It's fantastic. I love that. Love it for that. And the iPhone's always been quite square and kind of quite engineered and quite precise and kind of, it just looks really nice. It fits in with the rest of their lineup of stuff. You know, with sharper edges, and it kind of looks more engineering-ified and Johnny Ivy and that kind of stuff. But what Apple seem to have done this time around is actually not gone that way. They've kind of like rounded everything off, and it just doesn't look as good. It just looks kind of, I don't know, it doesn't look Apple-ified. It doesn't look like it's something they should have been, you know, dealing with for so many years. You kind of think that they just kind of refine the iPhone 5 design and just make it bigger if that's what they wanted to do. In terms of size, I don't really get what the hell they're doing. Not so long ago, when the iPhone 5 came out, there was a big run of adverts from Apple basically saying that the iPhone 5 was a perfect size to fit in the palm of your hand, and it didn't need to be any bigger. And they mocked other phones for doing so. So they mocked things like the Galaxy Notes and all the other kind of phones that came out that were stupidly big. You know, they were phablets. They were far too large, and Apple mocked them for that. And then Apple comes out and creates their own Like, I just don't understand why you need to have a phone that big. I mean, already talking about things like the Nokia Lumia, 6 inches is too big. 5.5 inches is too big. 4.7 is fine. The iPhone 6, absolutely perfect size. That's perfectly fine. I think that's great. iPhone 6 Plus, I don't see a market for it. I do see a market for it because people are going to buy it because it's Apple. But especially on the reactions on Twitter, Jesus fucking Christ, I cringed so hard when I saw some of the stuff that was coming out on Twitter. Like, it's just a phone. Like, I know there's some really good, there's some things I really feel passionate about. Don't get me wrong, but it's nothing special. It really isn't that great. As a step up, there's nothing I would say that, yeah, that's great. Compare it to the iPhone 5, there's nothing I'd say that makes it a lot better than anything else. In actual fact, as a phone on its own, it's kind of pretty average. I mean, if you were to remove the iOS, the Apple badge, and just remove iOS, and just put it in, band it with Android, because Android's the market leader at the moment. Let's just band it with Android, put Android skin on it, right? If you put that as a lineup against any other device, so, the Note and all these other kind of, Xperias and all that kind of stuff, the Galaxies, the LG phones, it would just be a normal run-of-the-mill device. In actual fact, it kind of copies HTC in a lot of ways, because HTC's designs have kind of been like that for a while. And it's kind of quite worrying that Apple aren't creating their own market, because Apple were always the kind of people that just said, this market doesn't exist, let's create a market for it. So, for instance, like the iPad, for instance, they created a market that didn't really exist. Same with the iPhone. The iPhone came along. We never really had Pocket PCs. We did. We had Pocket PCs. We had PDAs. They were really shit. They were running Windows. They were running Symbian. They were both really rubbish and really unintuitive. They were so non-user friendly. The first iPhone came out and was kind of similar to that. It was just a lot more user friendly. It didn't really do very much. Then, as things progressed, as the 3GS came out and further progressions of iOS came out, it got better. And without the iPhone, I'm going to admit this, without the iPhone, we wouldn't have had the smartphone market we've got today, because we just wouldn't. I mean, somebody else might have jumped on the bandwagon. Google might have done the job, and somebody else might have done something. But I don't think we would have advanced as far as we have without Apple, putting their foot through the door in terms of that. And it's the same in the iPad. We had tablets, they were Windows tablets, they were shit, and they weren't any good, and Apple came along and said, here's some tablets. It was a market that never really existed, and no one really wanted tablets. Everybody had phones, and everybody had a PC, or a laptop, or a TV, and nobody really cared too much. But as things moved on, tablets are now a thing. Everybody has a tablet. Lots of people, well, I say everybody has them. Loads of people have tablets. I'd say probably in terms of our student body, probably about 25% of our students have tablets. I don't know, I've not looked at the actual figures in terms of who connects to our network, but our university students, if you just look at the kinds of devices they're bringing in, they are laptops, but they do increasingly have tablets now as well. And they're kind of like third screen devices. You don't need them. They don't really allow you to do anything extra that really any other device wouldn't be able to do, like a laptop or a desktop or anything. They're kind of just like a third screen device. They let you do like games and Twitter and stuff. They're kind of like an extension of your phone, or an extension of your TV, or an extension of any other device you already own. But they're not a primary device in their own right, necessarily. But yes, Apple created these markets, and now what they're doing, as opposed to creating, innovating, and looking at what consumers might want in the future, they're looking at what other people are doing, what other manufacturers are doing, and just kind of copying them and going with the flow, which is kind of fine. If you were Samsung, and if you were Sony, or if you were LG, or if you were Google, or well, not Google, because Google do their own thing, but all these other companies that copy everybody else anyway, fine. But this is Apple we're talking about. They've never been ones for copying. They've always been ones for innovating and being in there with things. But they just haven't been. I just don't know what the hell they're doing. They're just, ever since Steve Jobs has died, it's just gone downhill really fast, and it's a real shame, because I don't doubt they'll both do really well. I don't doubt Apple's not going to lose any money out of this. If you just look at the reaction on Twitter, effing ridiculous. But the reaction on Twitter, everybody was buying the iPhone 6. I don't know why, because it's just an average phone. I don't get it. Unless, I guess, if you're an Apple fanboy, yeah, okay, fair enough. But I don't see it as a big, I would probably say I'm more of a Google fanboy, and I'm not really a fanboy of anything anymore. I used to be. But, I wouldn't go out and buy, I'm not going to go out and buy the new Xperia Z3. I'm not going to pre-order it. I'm going to wait and see what comes out further down the line, because there's no point me I mean, I need a new phone, but I'm not going to go out and just, pander to whichever brand I like the look of. So yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that Apple are going to do well out of it, but it's weird that, back in the day, Apple created stuff that people didn't even want, or people didn't even knew they wanted, and now they're just kind of copying what everyone else is doing and kind of taking a slice of the pie, which is a bit weird for Apple to do. But in terms of pricing, so I'm so going off on tangents today. I think this brew time is going to last probably going to last an hour, but which is fine for me because you guys want longer ones. You've already told me that you want a combination of both. You want 5-minute ones and you want ones that last an hour. So I'm going to give you an hour-long one now and then see how it goes. It's probably going to be about 45 minutes now. And in terms of pricing, the iPhone 6 starts at 539 quid or $649. That's for the 16GB model, which is weird. And they've then completely scrapped the 32GB model and gone straight up to 64. I think the idea is that basically the 16GB model is for the peasants that can't really afford an iPhone anyway, and so therefore all the sensible people will just pay a little bit more and get the 64GB version, and so that they've got rid of this 32GB version as a commercial advantage, because then means that people won't then be buying that, they'll go the next rung up and go to the 64GB version of the iPhone 6 is 619 quid or 749 US. 128GB version is 699 quid or $849 US. The 6 Plus starts at 619 quid or $749 US for the 16GB model. 64 gigs is 699 British pounds and $849 US, and the 128GB version of the 6 Plus is 789 quid or $949 US, which is effing ridiculous. And that's almost $1,000 US for a phone, which is stupid. I wouldn't spend that much on a phone. The Xperia Z3, which starts at 529 quid for the 16GB model, which allows you to have expandable storage as well, by the way. Even I wouldn't spend that kind of money on a phone. I want to, because I really want the device, but there's no way in hell I'd spend that much money on a phone. I'd buy a second-hand phone, like I'd buy the probably the Z2 and buy it pick it up on eBay for like 400 quid. Because there's no way, well, not even 400, 200, 300 quid maybe, but there's no way in hell I'd spend more than 500 quid, or even more than 400 quid on a new phone. If it's on contract, it might be a little bit different, but that's just ridiculous. Like, I can't believe, I mean, like, you remember back in the days when laptops used to cost more than phones? Now, laptops cost less than phones. You can pick up cheap laptops for like 200 quid, brand new laptops. You can pick up phones now that just like, they're just so expensive. Like, what happened to the world? I guess it's because less people are having laptops now. They might have a desktop, but they'll definitely have a phone. Everybody has a phone, everybody has a smartphone. And everybody uses that smartphone for everything. So, moving on to the Apple Watch. Apple released their own version of the wearables thing, which is kind of weird because, again, Apple aren't really ones for copying things. They usually create things. I'm quite surprised that Apple didn't create their own in the first place, because Google did it first, which isn't usually what happens. Usually Apple creates something and then everybody else copies them, which is a bit weird. But yeah, they've created their own Apple wearables thing, which really, nobody really wants it. Like, it's not, Apple just kind of said, oh, well, people have been hassling us for it and we're just going to create it, and I'm not going to buy it. I might look at buying a Moto 360 because that's obviously the best smartwatch available, even comparing it to the Apple Watch, which I'll talk about in a minute. But I don't see why you'd want to, and if you're not invested in the platform, you actually have to have an iPhone to use an Apple Watch. So unless you've got an iPhone, unless you're already an Apple fanboy and you bought into the market, bought into the brand, I don't see why you'd bother. But they brought out three versions: the standard watch, the watch sport, and watch edition. Both come in 38mm and 42mm flavours, and they also come in a range of materials and stuff: stainless steel, silver, aluminium, or aluminum as the Yanks like to call it, 18-karat yellow gold, space black stainless steel, space grey aluminium, 18-karat rose gold, which does actually look quite good. I do like rose gold stuff. Starts at 217 quid or $349 US, which actually isn't a bad price, considering the build quality looks pretty good and stuff like that. However, the 18-karat gold version could be as much as $1,200 US. So, yeah. So the Apple Watch, I think it's a piece of shit. Really, I honestly do. It looks awful, and the OS looks crap. And it's just kind of pointless. It just doesn't look like an Apple device. It just looks weird. It's kind of like Apple have come along to, or what it looks like is an iPhone 3. Oh, iPhone 3G, whatever it was. You know, when the first iPhone came out, it looked awful, didn't really do very much, and obviously Apple were kind of creating a market, things like that. Well, this is what the Apple Watch looks like. It looks like somebody has created the first iteration of a smartwatch and embedded it with a few things that smartphones have got and kind of rolled it out and rushed it, and it just doesn't look... It doesn't look Apple at all. It just looks... It looks like this is something that like Samsung would do, because Samsung have done this. Samsung will release a device because they want to get their market out, get the device out there, but it's not really finalised. It's a bit shit. And and then in further versions, it will become better. But this is kind of like that, and it's really weird because Apple is Apple, for Christ's sake. If you take the Apple logo off, it's a shit device. If you take the Apple, if you just ignore the fact that Apple made it, it's crap. If you compare it to any other... I mean, there was some... I can't remember who was going on about this now. Was it... it might have been Tech Radar. It might have been one of the BS bloody news sites like The Verge or... not The Register, because The Register are quite sensible. But Engadget or something like that was saying that the Apple... Well, the 360... The Moto 360 is the best Android smartwatch, but actually it's not the best smartwatch because it's Android and it's clunky and this, that and the other. Which is a completely lie, because if you look at the stuff that... I mean, right, let's look. If you're invested in Apple's platform and you want to do things like health kit and all that other kind of stuff, heartbeat monitoring and things like, step counts and all that other kind of stuff, then great. And you're invested in the Apple platform, fantastic. Probably is a great device for you. It looks shit, but hey-ho, there you go. Fantastic. But on its own, it's just shit, I personally hate the design. But, having said that, on a plus note, it looks like it's been designed really well. As much as I don't like the design, and I don't think Apple have done the right thing with it, from a design point of view, and there was a really great article about, I can't remember, there's a watch designer did a bit of a rundown of the iPhone, of the Apple Watch, and it was a really good article, and he went into why it was a really great product and stuff. But in terms of design, I don't like the design of it, but as a design piece and in terms of the craftsmanship that's gone into it, absolutely effing great. Like, fantastic. I mean, it just looks like it's been precisioned really well. It looks like Apple have done what Apple does and does some really great engineering with it. Fantastic. In terms of what they've done with the design, I don't particularly like it, but that's that. And one of the great things that Apple have done, which actually could be a market changer and could be a market leader, is things like their Apple bands. So what they've done is you can change the bands of the on the device. So it's really easy to do. You can change it, and you can have any number of bands. You can have them, they're made out of leather, rubber, all sorts of stuff. They can close via magnets. They can close like the Fitbit closes with different kinds of buckles and belts and all sorts of stuff. And, some are made out of metal, some are made out of plastic, and that is really good, because that's one thing that really nothing else has. Like, I don't really think the Moto 360 has that at the moment, and there's lots of other devices. They kind of just have a strap, and that's kind of it. You're stuck with that strap, and that's it. You can't really do anything with it. And the way that you can change it really easily is fantastic, and you can swap things out. And I think that's really where Apple have the advantage. People can customize things and things like that. I still don't like that bloody stupid screen. It looks stupid. It doesn't do anything that I really want it to do, and I won't go out and buy one. I probably won't even look. I mean, I might look at the Moto 360 maybe in a couple of years, but maybe in the new year perhaps. Take it with me to CES, see what I think. But I'm not sold on smartwatches too much for a minute, because I don't see... First, like, when tablets came out, I was one of those kind of people that just said, what's the point of a tablet? I've got a phone, I've got a laptop, why would I want a tablet? And then, not long afterwards, I then went out and bought a tablet, and then I realised how good a tablet was, and really it was great. And kind of that kind of mindset at the moment with smartwatches. I don't see the point of having a smartwatch, because I have a normal watch. I have a normal watch because it's quicker to look at my watch, see what time it is, and when I'm out and about, it's a lot easier than pulling my phone out. But if I want to do anything on my, if I get a notification, I'm going to do it on my phone. There's no point doing it on a watch because the screen's too small, and I'm going to be carrying my phone with me anyway, so it kind of seems pointless. I mean, the thing about map directions, yeah, it might be nice to have a look, quick glance down at your watch, but the screen's not big enough. I'm going to just look at my phone. I may as well just use the phone I've already got that's got a bigger screen. I just don't know. For me personally, fair enough if it was like the Razer, is it the Razer Nabu, whatever it's called, and things like, what Fitbit does. If I could like roll in like basically just a standard watch to do other things like heart monitoring and things like step counts, and it linked in with my smartphone, fine. great. But if it does other things than that, like show me my email and stuff, maps, I'm not really too fussed about that. So I think that's kind of where things like the Pebble do a really good job, because it's a really no-frills device, it's really cheap, and all it really does is display the time and a few extra added on bits. And that's all I really want from a watch. I don't want fancy things like that because I'm carrying my phone around with me all the time. And all it's going to do is going to drain battery for my phone, because I'm going to have to link in with that all the time to get things like my notifications, everything else. So it's kind of, and then you're going to need, it's another device to be charged every day. I already have to charge 3 devices every day. I've got to charge my, and more. I've got to charge my iPad Air. I charge my Nokia 1520. I charge my work phone. I charge my Xperia Z. And on occasion I will charge my Nexus 7, because I don't really use it every day. I only really use it as kind of an alarm clock at the moment, and as a device to sync up to my camera, and that's literally it. So I don't see there any need to have an Apple Watch or a smartwatch in any kind of iteration at all. I'd really like to see Apple do something like virtual reality stuff, like Google Glass, because I think that is stuff that really matters, because that's not an extra thing that already exists that that somebody's hacked around to make it better, like a watch. It's a completely new thing that is, it basically means you don't have to do anything. You just kind of glance up and it's there. It's not like, oh, I've got to look at my wrist, or oh, I've got to take my phone out of my pocket, or oh, I've got to do whatever. It's there, and it's there all the time. The thing that annoys me with stuff like that is there's been lots of bad press and bad publicity about things like Google Glass, and a lot of people don't really like it, because it's kind of like changing the way that a lot of people think about privacy and stuff. They don't like the fact that you could be being recorded all the time and you wouldn't necessarily know. The thing is, you're being recorded all the time. Is it better that some random person on the street does it, and they're probably, if they own a Google Glass, they're going to be rich and they're going to be a geek, so it doesn't really matter. Those kinds of people aren't generally creepy people. They could be, but is it better that those kinds of people have, record you and do something with it, as opposed to the state, or as opposed to some private company that might do anything with it? I don't know. I suppose the only thing that really worries me is the fact that Google owns it. Google, as much as Google are not a nasty company, they own a lot of data. They own Nest, they own Dropcam now, they own Android, they own Gmail, they own Google Search. If they linked up, let's for instance suggest that the NSA was running Google, and they linked everything. Let's look at CTOS, for instance. CTOS was a thing. If CTOS was a thing, that thing from Watch Dogs. If CTOS was a thing and Google ran it and everything was, there, and they could somehow link everything up together and find you, they would have all this data. If somebody was really malicious and could somehow link up all that all those data points, not only could they find out what you're searching, they could find out where you've been, because it would be in your maps on your phone, which is GPS enabled anyway. So they could find out where you've been, they could find out what times you're home or not home, they could find out what you're doing at home, because there'd be cameras from Dropcam there, and they'd be able to find out what temperature you like your house, they'd be able to do all sorts of stuff. They also would be able to follow you around if you're wearing Google Glass, because then they can see what pictures you're doing and everything else. So lots of that kind of stuff is just really quite scary. Equally, it's really quite cool, because all this stuff being connected is fantastic, but one entity controlling it always a little bit. I know Google aren't going to do anything nasty with it, because Google's great and their motto is do no evil, but still, it's one company, and all it takes is for one awful human being to work for that company that wants to do something malicious with it, and it's a lot to kind of move into. And it's the same with Apple. Apple have that with all their kind of devices as well. That was a huge tangent that went off on some weird road of stuff, but anyway, I'm not going to buy an Apple Watch. I'm not going to buy an iPhone 6. iPhone 6 I think is actually, if they change the design, iPhone 6 fine. I don't really see any point in upgrading from iPhone 5. And the thing is, you may not believe this, but I was quite happy to invest in the Apple infrastructure. I was waiting for the iPhone 6 to come out to decide what to do when I went to upgrade my next device, because I was thinking, actually, this could be a good time to actually invest in the Apple ecosystem, get an iPhone. I already have an iPad, and I have a MacBook Air, although really I'm probably going to get rid of that. I'm quite, I was ready, and things like with the watch as well, I was ready to invest all my money into the Apple infrastructure and to do that. But I'm now not, because the design they've created is shit. And there's nothing there that says, oh yeah, wow, that's really great. There's a guy that I know quite well personally that I follow on Twitter, and he was going on about, oh, Android users are slagging off the iPhone because it's got things that Android it's because it's got things that Android users are jealous of or something. There's nothing that Apple have that is greater than anything that Android has. Hardware is definitely not better. The only thing I'd say they've got nailed down is the ease of use of iOS. But apart from that, that's kind of it. Everything's kind of, like if I could chuck my mum a device like the iPhone, then yeah, fair enough. But for everybody else, not really. For geeks, definitely not. For somebody like me, no way, because I can't customize it. I can't do the things I want to be able to do with it, and so it's no good for me. But I think for noobs, for a lot of our users, yeah, great. It works really well. It just kind of works out of the box, and it does what you need it to do. It's similar to Windows Phone, right? I stand by this, and I don't care how much hate I'm going to get. Windows Phone is the best mobile operating system ever. It really is. It's simple to use. It uses no battery. It looks great. It works great. It's pretty much bug free. It's fantastic. But the trouble with Windows Phone is the apps are shit. The App Store is crap. The apps that exist or don't exist are shit. There's lots of stuff that are missing from the Windows Phone environment, and but that is probably the best mobile operating system ever. And if they had all the apps sorted, I would say to my mum, you need to go and get that, because it's stupidly easy to use. Tile system's really good. But this is the same with iOS. iOS is fantastically easy to use, and nothing's going to change that. iOS is brilliant. But there's still things that kind of are missing from it, and the thing is, lots of things have been kind of stolen from other things, and I know, like, Android's been doing it for ages. Android's been doing it for years, and Windows Phone's been doing it for years as well. However, they've not been doing it as long as Apple have been doing it, and Apple have never been the kind of people to steal things from other people in terms of things like Notification Center, which Android has had for ages. And I'm just trying to think what even they've got now that we gave them in terms of an idea. Things like widgets on the home screen, and just silly things like that haven't really that we've had for ages, and Apple have then just suddenly decided that they're gonna implement now. But anyway, that was kind of more of a rant about the whole thing, as opposed to any real opinion or anything like that. But I mean, I don't like it. People will like it. People will obviously go out and buy it. So does it really matter? Probably not. I don't really care. So yeah. So there's 3 bits of news to end on after all that. Salesforce plan to rename London skyscraper Salesforce Tower has been thrown out. So I didn't want to mention this because it's not really tech news, but it was on the register, and after my rant, that Gamersgate rant about journalism being shit and irrelevant. This is kind of a little bit irrelevant, but it was quite interesting, so we're going to go with it anyway. But Salesforce moved into this London skyscraper. I can't remember where it was. It doesn't really matter. They occupied 6 floors, and they said to the people that own the building, we want you to rename it to the Salesforce Tower or something. And they basically turned around and said no, because they only occupied 6 floors, and everybody else turned around and said no, don't be so ridiculous. We're not gonna. We're tenants of this building too. We're not going to allow you to do that. And also, I think the guy that owned the company that owns the building, I think, said that he thought it was an April Fool's joke when they actually mentioned about when Salesforce asked. There's going to be a new bylaw that's going to be put in place in London, whereby you have to occupy at least 50% of the cubic capacity of the building, or 50% of the floor space, before you can actually ask for it to be changed to something like whatever, Microsoft Tower or something like that. Also, there's going to be a new Amazon HQ in London, which looks quite funky, but I didn't really think it worthy that much to actually go into too much detail about it, but I just thought I'd mention it because it's relevant to that. Italy's High Court orders HP to refund punter for putting Windows on PC. This is effing great. Basically, a guy said to HP, I don't want your shitty Windows on my machine, I want a refund on it. They said no, he took them to court. He won. There's a short and long of that. And I think this is what needs to happen. It annoys me that if you want to go out and buy a laptop, you're having to spend the extra 70, 80 quid, however much it is, however much the OEM pays, on top of the hardware for Windows, which some people don't even want. Because, like, I want to be able, like, for instance, the Linux community, for instance, some people want to just be able to pick up a laptop for Linux and chuck Linux on it and not have to pay the premium for the Windows bit. But you can't do that you have to buy either a Windows machine, which you have to pay a premium for. Well, you have to pay. Not only do you have to pay for the device, you have to pay for the licensing for Microsoft for Windows on top of it, and then or you've got to go with something like System 30, 33, 64, 55. I don't know, whatever they're called, who charge you a premium because their hardware is stupidly ridiculous. Or you've got to go with something like a Mac, which actually runs Windows bloody well and Linux really well and everything really well. So either way, you're going to be having to waste money left, right, and centre just to get what you want. And really, what they should be doing is when you buy a device, is they should give you the option to ask for a rebate. So, for instance, every device comes with an OEM sticker, not attached to the device, although this is the way they do it now. They don't actually attach a sticker to the device for product keys, and as an OEM version, they usually sort of embed it with the BIOS and kind of like, well, UEFI BIOS, and so it's kind of tied to the machine as opposed to, some weird product key, which is kind of a bit weird and kind of annoying from a consumer standpoint, but it does kind of make sense in terms of anti-piracy, I guess. But it's annoying as a user that you're kind of forced to have Microsoft stuff. Fair enough if you bought like an Apple Mac, because the two kind of go together. Whereas Microsoft have different OEMs creating different hardware that may or may not work with other operating systems and stuff. And really, you shouldn't really have. I mean, especially if you buy in bulk. So, for instance, at work, when we buy a job lot of Toshibas, we have Portages at work. They're crap, but we buy a job lot of them, and as part of the deal we pay, I think they're about 700 to 800 quid, including the warranty price and everything else that goes on top of it. They're stupidly expensive what they are. They really are, because it's corporate stuff and they always try and rape you for stuff like that. But we have to pay on top of the actual, so within that price as well, there's also a copy of an OEM version of Windows 7, which we don't need because we're an academic institution and we have volume licensing. So we don't need an extra license because we've already paid for it via volume licensing. But they still give you that because that's what happens. That's the agreement that Toshiba and Microsoft have. So they combine the two together and give you an OEM sticker on the device, which we don't want. So, like, stuff like that's really annoying. So, I mean, it always happens, though. Especially from a corporate standpoint, when you buy corporate machines, they always give you an OEM key, which you don't need, because you always have volume licensing. If you've got more than 100 PCs, you go with volume licensing, because it's stupid not to, Because from a management standpoint, it makes more sense. It's also cheaper, and it's just better. But they still bundle you with this unnecessary OEM key. And you don't effing need it, which is kind of another good reason for building your own. It doesn't really work out any more expensive. I think it probably works out a little bit cheaper. Depends on who you go with, obviously. But if you build your own, you don't have to worry about all that. You do have to pay for Windows on top of it. But lots of times people already got a copy of Windows. I mean, I've already got a copy of Windows 8 and Windows 8.1 and Windows 7 and Windows XP and all these. Well, Windows XP, all these copies of Windows because when TechNet still kind of sort of existed. When I was a TechNet member, I had all the keys for that. And it is supposed to be for testing, but still, And the trouble is, Windows is so effing expensive. It's not. Shouldn't be that expensive. Windows should be like Mac. Mac always was like a 30 quid kind of upgrade for whenever they released a service pack, which they called a new operating system, but really was a service pack. Microsoft should be doing that, and there was talk of Microsoft going with this subscription model whereby every year they release a new operating system and you pay 30 quid a year and the upgrades, and if you don't upgrade, like with Apple stuff, things don't work. That's actually probably not a bad idea, although it would annoy me because that would then mean I'd have to pay for every single device that I had, would then have to have this volume license, this subscription-based license, which would annoy the hell out of me. It really would. By the time I'd have my laptop and my desktop and everything else and my server, and it would just be annoying. And that's one thing that really pisses me off with Microsoft. Like, a lot of times I would just really want to pirate shit because for a standalone version of Windows, it's just too expensive. I think it's like, was it 70 quid? I think for the standard version. I think if you want to go pro, it's something like 120. It might have changed a little bit. But the thing is, that's per PC. It gives you 3 activations usually, or 5 or whatever. But that's per PC. So you can only have one license per PC, which is ridiculous. It should be licensed to you as the person. And I always hate bloody Microsoft licensing as well, because, for instance, if I remove Office off of that machine, or I get rid of my machine, reimage it, and put Office on another machine, Microsoft counts that as another installation and therefore sometimes will kick me out. So I have to ring them up and say, excuse me, I don't actually have that installed on that machine anymore. Can you clear things down? And they always give you a load of bloody aggro for it. But sometimes they do. They sometimes do give you a key if you sort of sweet talk them a little bit. But they're such a fucking pain in the ass. And it's just like, look, just license me as a person the license, and then I'm responsible. And if it goes on 10 machines and Microsoft detects that it's running concurrently on 10 machines when it calls home, fine, block me. You know, block it and send me a shitty letter and say, we've detected this and that. Fine. But stop with this bloody bullshit, buy one the machine rubbish, because that really annoys me. From a geek standpoint, I'm not going to give it, I'm quite a decent human being. I'm not going to give it to all and sundry, because there might have been a time when I used to do that, but not anymore, because I realise it's software costs money, and if Microsoft charged me 70 quid for like a license for me to put on up to 5-10 devices, for instance, that'd be great, because I could put it on my laptop, I could put it on my desktop, I could put it on another machine, because I'd probably have about 3 or 4 machines. Great. I think it's quite good that Microsoft now have their 90-day trial, which I use loads. They do this 90-day evaluation version, which is great, because I use it on my Gigabyte Brick system, and I use it as boot camp on my MacBook Air, because I don't use it as my primary device all the time. So because it's not my primary, I re-image it every 90 days. So that gives me, it's kind of a little bit, it's not illegal, it's kind of a little bit of a flowering around the EULA maybe a little bit, because I'm not evaluating it, I'm using it as a proper operating system. But there's no point wasting 70 quid on an operating system on something that's literally going to just render videos, because that's all I'm going to use it for. I'm just going to use it to render out videos. What's the point of me spending 70 quid when on my Gigabyte Brick system, on top of everything else, considering the device only cost me like 200 quid, when I could just use that free version just for that purpose, But I think really Microsoft would be even better placed to actually have it for free. I think Microsoft would do themselves a good service if they released licensed versions of Windows for free to customers, and then charged OEMs like a 20 quid fee for it, or enterprises like 10-20 quid per license or something. Because really, obviously, because Microsoft own the enterprise market, and things like when you buy Microsoft devices now, they come bundled with it anyway. Things like Microsoft, Windows tablets and stuff. But for games enthusiasts and enthusiast builders, those kinds of people, really, it would be better for them if they just released it for free, because people won't pirate stuff. Then it will be above board. They might take a bit of a profit hit, but they'd get it back with things like Office, because Office, I personally think, is worth the money, and they actually could get away with charging a lot more for it, because Office is a fucking amazing package. It's really great, and really, in terms of how much money I personally make out of it, in terms of from a commercial standpoint, and from and for businesses, you consider how much things like CC costs and Adobe Creative Suite. That's a fucking insanely expensive package. $1,000 each license most of the time for the whole thing, and Microsoft are charging you 70 quid for an entire suite of apps that does everything. A really powerful spreadsheet app that does all sorts of stuff, probably on a par with things like SPSS and stat graphics and stuff. Maybe not as powerful, but does most of the stuff you need it to do. Microsoft Word, which is effing great. That's pretty much a desktop publishing package with word processing embedded, with everything else embedded. Pretty much all you need to do is use Word, because it does everything else. It does the things that Excel does, a little bit clunky. It does the things that Publisher does, because Publisher is still shit. I don't quite know why people still use Publisher. PowerPoint, effing great pieces. There's no other presentation software that's as good as PowerPoint. Keynote is bollocks. Keynote is the worst fucking thing ever. I tried to use it this week because I had my job application, which I unfortunately didn't get because the other guy had 14 years experience and had a PG cert in training, and I fucking didn't. So I didn't get the job, did I? But I tried to do it in Keynote because I thought this is a great opportunity for me to try and use my Mac as a productive thing. And with Keynote, and it didn't work because it was shit, and it just didn't. It was so unintuitive, and it didn't work properly. And Windows management is crap, and I raged so hard. Whereas Windows, PowerPoint, fantastic, works together really well. God, that was a bloody massive long tangent. So to end on, basically going back to the article, Italy's High Court orders HP to refund punter they should do that across the EU, and the European Court should turn around to Microsoft and say, this is what you need to do. Kind of a bit like they did with you need to release a version of Windows without Windows Media Player. You need to release a version of Windows that doesn't include IE8, or doesn't include a browser. They need to do that with stuff like that across the board, because it's really great for enthusiasts. It's really great for corporations as well. The last thing to end on, net neutrality fans joy as 2.3 million email flood hits US Congress. So, this week, on the 10th of September, who was it that actually did it? It was the Battle for the Net did this campaign to basically stop net neutrality, or actually put through net neutrality, because the likes of Comcast and all the big ISPs in America were trying to block it. So that would mean that things like Netflix and stuff wouldn't take a priority over things, and other companies would have specific deals with their ISPs to be able to get their content to the people. So, for instance, if you have a Netflix subscription, which you pay Netflix for, and you also pay your ISP to give you the internet, like Comcast would have to have an agreement with Netflix so that their content would be delivered to the customer in the same way that every other thing would be delivered to the customer. Whereas if they didn't have that agreement, then they would slow the bandwidth down, so you couldn't use Netflix as well, you couldn't stream in 4K and whatever, which is fucking shit. Because the thing is, it's really crap for both parties, really, because the ISPs have a point, because they've invested in the infrastructure, and oftentimes the likes of Netflix, Google, all these other kind of things don't have local CDNs, content delivery networks, and so the ISPs have to go a lot further using their own equipment to get the content in the first place. So, but equally, the likes of Netflix and stuff haven't really got that much money, or they have quite a bit of money, but they're only one service out of so many, and so they don't really want to spend the money there either. And the ISPs don't really want to spend the money. But as a customer, it's shit, because you pay your ISP to deliver you internet. That's what they're there for. I don't personally, my mum pays for that, but I pay TalkTalk. My mum pays TalkTalk. Really stupidly, she pays TalkTalk, and it really annoys me, but she pays TalkTalk, they give me internet. They give me really shit, slow internet, but they give me internet. That's the whole point. I pay for a service, I expect to receive that service, job done. I don't expect to have this tiered level of thing, because you can't organise your industry and you can't get your shit together. That's not my problem. You two need to battle that out. I'm not, as a customer, I want every piece of internet that's going to come in to be exactly the same and prioritise exactly the same. Which really pisses me off with things like Virgin, because they do data shaping and all sorts of other stuff. Things like torrents, even legal torrents, for fuck's sake. That really pisses me off. Because torrenting is a fantastic network. Brilliant content delivery network. Torrenting's fucking great, because there's no centralised storage. Things like torrent, peer-to-peer stuff is really great. It's annoying as a paid customer. So if I'm somebody like Spotify does this, which really pisses me off. I pay Spotify, and they use my PC and my internet connection to stream content from my PC to other users. It provides a better system for everybody if I had a decent internet connection, but it doesn't base it on my internet connection. It canes my internet sometimes, so it will cane my upload speed, because it's uploading to the peer-to-peer network so somebody else can stream closer to me than going to their CDN. Which, it's a really good idea if they did it in a way that basically they rewarded you for being a peer-to-peer sort of thing. So like Netflix, or not LoveFilm, but Amazon Prime Video. If they did it, and they did it in a way that would reward the users for doing peer-to-peer, great, because it's fantastic for other people if it uses peer-to-peer, because you get better service. So yeah, but things like torrenting really annoys me, because torrenting is a great system of distributing content, compared to, because basically as a company, you don't have to spend for the pay for the infrastructure of a server to upload and everything else. I mean, you do need one server. There's the primary peer, but once it's out there, other people on the network can share that file around, and it doesn't give you so much overhead in terms of, well, how much bandwidth do I need to have, and how much server storage space do I need to have, all this other kind of stuff. So there's a bloody spider up there. It's doing my bloody head in. Not that I'm scared of spiders. It just keeps moving. It keeps putting me off. So yes, that's kind of quite interesting. The whole, what actually happened with it. They sent 2.3 million emails to Congress to basically say, get your shit together, don't support net neutrality. 312,000 calls to Congress were made, basically breaking their call management system, which was quite good. 1.1 million links were shared on Facebook, and 40,000 websites participated in the campaign, including some of the big ones. So including things, I think Netflix were a part of it. Some of the huge companies that deal with a lot, that are huge in terms of the amount of people that use them, were supporting it, which is great. That was absolutely fantastic. So that is pretty much it. This has probably been the longest brew time I think I might have ever done, but it covers everything I wanted it to do. Some people have said that they really want me to carry on doing the walk home rants, so I'm going to carry on doing that because people like them. So I need to do one on, well, there's an ITIL one coming, which was actually filmed here. I just need to kind of, I've edited it together. I didn't release it at the time because I just kind of didn't agree with some of the points I raised, but actually looking back, I now agree wholeheartedly. So I don't know, I'm going to have to do something like that. I'm going to have to do several rants, so I'm going to do that because people said they really wanted it. The other thing people have asked for, well, I say some people have asked for, they want me to do bullshit YouTube stuff. So they want me to do what the other YouTubers do and do like proper vlogs and just like catch up on my life and all this other shit. I've kind of said to them no, because I don't think that a majority of people will actually want to do that. And also, I'm not really, that's not kind of the point of this channel. So I've not done it because a lot of people wanted me to do, you know, relevancy to, you know, the few bits I've done in the past in terms of pride and things like that. And was very tempted to create a separate channel for that. But I want to kind of keep it as one thing. But then it's going to be kind of one thing, it's going to be one brand, and it's going to kind of be this one thing, and it's, I don't know, I could branch off and I could create a separate channel for that kind of stuff, but I haven't really got time. I've barely got time to do this, let alone that. So yes. So next week there will be many. Oh Jesus, it's gonna be so busy. I'm gonna have to do a Nokia review, Nokia 1520 review. I need to do some IP5 stuff. I need to do an IP5 Eco review, which I'm hopefully gonna record tomorrow. I'm gonna do. What else do I need to do? The IP5 conference next weekend. The weekend after that's Eurogamer. I've got a cameraman for that, which is great, and then need to figure out what the fuck I'm going to do with CES, because that's going to cost me so much money. I haven't booked anything yet. I've got all the equipment now. I've got all the equipment sorted. So I've got a camera, I've got mics, I've got recorders, I've got all that stuff sorted. So that's all great. I just need to sort out getting over there now. And yeah, so that's pretty much all I've got to say. So obviously hit me up on Twitter at AzzyChill, send me an email at aaron@azzychill.com. Apart from that, I shall catch you in a later video. But annoyingly, it's the chauvinists and it's the bloody bigots that ruin it for everybody else, because they're the kind of people that means we have laws and stupid policies which mean that we've got to try and actively encourage a certain percentage of minority groups, because we've got these bloody chauvinists and bigots that just don't want to have women in power, and they don't want to have these kind of people there, because they don't look at that person as how good they are in that job. They look at that person and say, well, that's a woman, I don't like women, I don't agree that that woman should be here, all women should be in a kitchen kind of mentality, which is absolute crap and makes it shit for everybody else.